You ever look at the world and wonder, why is it so messy? Well, if you look at the story the Bible tells, it all traces back to one single fundamental problem: sin. And we're not just talking about breaking a few rules here and there. We're talking about a broken relationship, a deep separation from God that has completely shaped the human story. So let's trace this whole thing back to the very beginning. Think about it. In a perfect world, all of human history hinged on one single choice. Now, this wasn't really about a piece of fruit. It was about trust. It was about obedience. It was about which direction humanity would go. And wow, everything that came after, it all hangs on this one crucial moment. So, what do we actually mean when we use the word sin? Well, the Bible defines it as rebellion. It's an active choice to go against God's perfect design for us. And the immediate result? A fracture, a break in our relationship with Him, a separation from His perfect goodness and holiness. All right, so to really get this, we've got to rewind the clock all the way back to the Garden of Eden. God set up this relationship, this covenant with humanity, and it was all built on a really simple premise of trust, which was summed up in one single clear command. The options were laid out, crystal clear. You've got two paths. On one side, obedience. That means life, perfect friendship with God, and total innocence. But on the other side, disobedience. And that path was explicitly tied to death, to separation, and to this new, corrosive thing called shame. The stakes just could not have been higher. And into this perfect setup, of course, a tempter shows up. The serpent's strategy here is just brilliant in how sneaky it is. It doesn't start with, hey, go break the rule. No, it starts with a little question. Did God really say? First, it plants that tiny seed of doubt, then it flat out contradicts God, and finally, it appeals directly to their pride. And right here, you can almost see the gears turning. Her focus completely shifts away from what God said and onto what she wants. It's a classic pattern, really. The appeal to the body, it's good for food. The appeal to our desires, it's pleasant to the eyes. And the appeal to our ego, it's desirable to make one wise. And the consequences? Oh, they weren't delayed. They were immediate. First, you have the act itself, the bite. Then, boom, their eyes are opened. But not to some grand new wisdom, but to their own vulnerability. And right on the heels of that comes a brand new human emotion: shame. In an instant, all that innocence was just gone. And this right here, is the core result of sin. Just moments before, they walked with God, no problem, perfect friendship. And now, their first instinct is to hide. This act of hiding is the perfect picture of the separation that sin creates. The connection was broken. But the tragedy doesn't stop there. Sin wasn't a contained event. It was a corruption, a virus, that immediately began to spread. It infected the very next generation and set a dark pattern for the rest of the world. You see this play out so fast in the story of Cain and Abel. What started as simple disobedience with their parents just escalates dramatically. Suddenly, we've got jealousy over a rejected offering. God even warns Cain. He says, sin is crouching at your door. But Cain makes the choice to give in, and just like that, murder enters the world. I mean, look at this connection. It is so powerful. On one side, you have this subtle, tempting thought that leads to disobedience, and then just one generation later, you have its violent, devastating outcome. The corruption just spread with terrifying speed. And just look at this exchange. God's question, "Where's your brother?" He's not looking for information. He knows. It's an invitation. It's a chance for Cain to confess. But Cain's response? It's pure defiance. Am I my brother's keeper? This is a crucial point. It shows how sin hardens the heart and turns us away from repentance. This timeline really puts the growth of sin into perspective. You go from one single act to the first murder, and then roughly 1,600 years later, you get to a point where the entire world is so consumed by corruption that God has to intervene with a global flood. Humanity was completely unable to stop this thing from spreading. I mean, listen to this verse from Genesis. It's a shocking diagnosis of the human condition back then. It's not just that people were doing bad things. It says every intent of their thoughts, their hearts, was only evil continually. The corruption was total. Okay, so we've seen the history, the story of how this all unfolded. Now let's dig a little deeper into the nature of sin itself. The original Hebrew language actually has a few different words for sin. And when you look at them, you get this really rich three-dimensional picture of what we're dealing with. So the first word is chata. The best way to think about this is like an archer who's aiming for the bullseye, but the arrow falls short. That's chata. It's a failure to meet God's perfect standard of goodness, whether you meant to or not. You just missed the mark. Next up is pesha, which means transgression. Now, this is completely different. This is no accident. This is willful rebellion. This is knowing exactly where the line is and deliberately stepping over it anyway, in defiance of God's authority. And finally, we have avon, or iniquity. This one gets to the very root of the issue. It's not just about missing the mark or crossing a line. This word refers to the inner corruption, that twisted, crooked condition of the human heart that produces all those sinful actions in the first place. So, yeah, we've painted a pretty bleak picture here, right? Separation, corruption, a problem that seems woven into our very nature. But that is not where the story ends. Not even close. Now we get to turn to God's incredible response to this broken world. For centuries, the Old Testament had a system of sacrifices, and they served an important purpose. They constantly reminded people how serious sin was. But here's the key. They were always temporary. They were always pointing forward, acting like a giant coming soon sign for a final, perfect solution that could deal with sin once and for all. And this verse, this is the heart of that solution. It describes this incredible divine exchange. God made Jesus, who was completely perfect, to become sin on our behalf, so that we, through him, could be given the very righteousness of God. It's mind-blowing. And this just drives the point home. Why did Christ, the just one, suffer for us, the unjust? For one specific reason, that he might bring us to God. His sacrifice is the bridge. It closes that gap, that separation that was created all the way back in the garden. It's often called the magnificent exchange. God didn't just sweep sin under the rug. He dealt with it fully. Christ took all of our junk, all of our sin and its penalty, and in its place, we are offered his perfect record, his righteousness. It's a solution that somehow satisfies both perfect justice and perfect love at the same time. And that really brings us to the final thought to leave you with. When you truly grasp the seriousness of sin, that it's not just a mistake, but this deep corruption that leads to total separation from God, how does that change your perspective? How does it change your appreciation for what salvation truly is?